If you were to ask for the best pet in existence, that list is going to have a ball python. Not only because they're docile and they're easy to keep, but also because of the immense variety of their mesmerizing designs, fondly known as morphs. And among these hundreds of morphs and billions of combos, there is our protagonist today, and that is Pastel. Pastel is one of the oldest and one of the most common morphs of ball python. Since Pastel is one of the earliest genes to be made, it is quite common these days in the hobby. It can be a good thing, but part of it is a downfall for pastels, and we will touch on that later. But before all that, let's talk about pastel's appearance first. For ball pythons, we are used to describing them in segments, and that will be describing the head, the body, the tail, the belly, and so on and so forth. Like, there can be smaller segments, but mainly those four are what we're going to be focused on. So first, let's start with the head. Pastel is known for creating gradients of colors in dark parts in a ball python. So if we look at its head, you will see a dark parts of its head, which is often referred to as a crown. The crown part will have gradients. There will be lightening of color, and this characteristic of having gradient will hold true throughout the whole snake. So the entire snake's dark parts will have gradients and lightening of color. This trait will be intensified in combos, like if you have super pastels or pastel fires, this trait will be so exaggerated that it creates wide scales on the snake. Now moving on to the body, like I just said, pastel will create gradients in the dark parts, but also it is a brightening and lightening gene. So for the entire snake, you will see that the colors is more vibrant, it is more bright. The brown turns into yellow, and when it is combined with genes that are more yellow, like yellow belly, desert ghost, orange dream, it makes its yellow much more pronounced. So overall, you can think of pastel as a lightening gene. Whatever you add pastel to, the color just gets brighter. So at first glance, that might sound like a pretty good thing to have, but within the hobby, people have mixed feelings towards pastel. The reason being, a lot of projects in our hobby are chasing saturation, and that is your deep orange, deep red, and dark stripes. And the pastel, for its very nature of lightening colors, reduces saturation. If that's all, I guess it'll be fine, but pastel is developed so early on, so many snakes has pastel in it, so it turns out to be harder for people to avoid pastels when they're buying a snake for their project. So in my experience, pastel is a lot like a pet peeve or an annoyance to many of us breeders. However, I strongly insist that there are no bad genes, just unfitting combinations given a particular artistic interest. So here are a few combos that I think pastel not only looks good in, but is actually crucial to the look. Combos number 1, anything that aims for a bright yellow. And that will be your Enchi, Orange Dream, Fire Leopard type combos. For example, this Super Enchi OD Fire Leopard ball python. If you add pastel to this combo, you'll see that the brown speckling on the snake is largely removed, and it also brightens up the snake. However, if you're looking at this thing in a saturation way, of course this snake has less saturated orange. And that is a designer's choice thing. In the same category, Desert Ghost and Pastel Desert Ghost has similar dynamics to the example I just gave. Pastel Desert Ghost also has that brightening effect, and it is also a prominent choice in the hobby. Combo type number 2 is when pastel creates an atypical effect in the combo. For example, pastel does wonders to your Act Like Super or Super Forms Super Stripe Complex combos. I know that's a mouthful, but yeah, I'll give you examples. In this case, pastel is crucial for the look you're looking at here, which is a lot of white colors. And it is almost inexchangeable for that matter. I have no recollection of any other genes that can do this to a act like super / super combo in the super stripe complex. Other than creating color altercations, Pastel can, but is less known for its busying pattern ability. A good example top of my head would be a black pastel confusion versus a pastel black pastel confusion. As you can see, adding pastel not only brightens up the snake, it intensifies the speckling on this snake. And this is not just a one-off thing. You can use pastel for busying or intensifying the speckling in many other combos. It is a general thing. So these are the strong points of pastel that I think it's very interesting to utilize in a project, exploring its possibilities a bit more. But a lot of people, including myself, in this hobby has problem with pastel. And like I said earlier, it's because it reduces saturation. But what exactly are we talking about? I'm gonna give you a few examples. Of course, before I go into this, I have to make it clear that I don't think it's an objective truth that pastel reducing saturation is a bad thing. It's purely subjective. You can decide whether that's good for you or not. And without further ado, here's an example. Super Pastel Clown. This is a baby snake. You'll say it's bright, it's beautiful. There's those white colors that is super cool with super pastel stuffs. But let's show you the adult Super Pastel Clown. So as you can see, it turns brown. Yeah, it turns brown. Its saturation for sure reduced. And that's the thing with pastel. Their reduction of saturation gets worse as they age. And here's another example. The Super Pastel Pinstripe as a baby and as adults. So I guess you can see my point. It gets brown, it loses contrast and saturation. So it's not hard to understand why some people in this hobby, they don't really like pastel in all of their combos. Let alone the fact that you might find a perfect animal with perfect genes for your project, but it has pastels. Oh man, I know that feeling. But there was a time when this is not the case with pastels. The year 1997. The name Greg Graziani and Kevin McCurley. These are the two people who first introduced wild pastels into the hobby and successfully bred them. At the time, there are few genes swimming around and people have little idea of how genetics work. At first, people think pastel might be recessive, and then through breeding, they found out it's incomplete dominant, but at the time, it's called codominant. Today, we know that codominant is an incorrect term, but why is it incorrect? I think that's for another video. Well, if you want to know why codominant is an incorrect term, you can leave a comment down in the comment section down below, and I will sure make a video on it. Back to the story. So pastel was very sought after in the early 2000s. Its price can even go up to $7,500 for one animal, and that's nuts for pastels. They're $30, $40 an animal nowadays. Think of it, it's crazy. So that little piece of pastel information I got from this, the Ultimate Ball Python Morph Maker Guide by Kevin McCurley. Guys, you have no idea how hard and expensive it is to get this out-of-print book here in Taiwan or in any Asia country. It's a thick book and there's a lot of words in it. I am not an avid reader, but there are some cool stories about early ball python days. So I'll recommend this if you can buy one. And there you go, a quick overview over pastel. Did you like it? How would you yourself use pastel? Let me know in the comments. And for our Mandarin speaking friends, there are additional genetic contents in our Patreon. So if you're interested in that, make sure you join it today. It's always a pleasure sharing my knowledge and passion with all of you. This is Edward, signing off. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and remember, nature never ceases to amaze.